Hello and welcome to 3-Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Bramble the Mountain King. Turns out Nordic fairy tales are just nightmare fuel for kids, and this one's no exception. Should you journey into another realm with Bramble? Let's find out. Bramble the Mountain King is a walking simulator style horror game with a handful of platforming puzzles that fall into the genre of horrible things happening to a little kid, pioneered by Limbo. You play as Oli, a young boy who follows his sister out at night to explore the fanciful mythological world of the nearby forest, where they've been shrunk down to be gnome-sized. At first, things are nice and cute, playing hide and seek with those gnomes and meeting a friendly royal frog. However, things take a turn for the worst when Ollie's sister is nabbed by a troll to be the Mountain King's dinner, and Ollie is left alone in an ever-darkening forest to find her. The story focuses on interactions with various Nordic mythological creatures, such as, I'm going to pronounce all of these wrong, the water hunter Nakin, or seductress Skogsra, as well as witches, giants, trolls, and kings. Turns out most mythological creatures aren't friendly, with Ollie's adventure going from whimsical to horrific very quickly, and the things he has to do to survive increasingly questionable. Despite its cute opening segments, this is not a fun horror game for children, like, say, Little Nightmares might be. The horrors here are grotesque, violent, and upsetting, with some stuff even making me wonder if this was pushing the M rating. The game does well in using smart camera angles to never linger too long on anything horrible, keeping things just out of view a lot of the time to increase the tension. Gameplay itself is very simple, with most of it being some light platforming. It does have several stealth sections where you often hide from something seeking you on a rhythmic pattern, with you moving between spots during the safe moments. I only mention this because this game does it a lot for some reason. There's also a little bit of combat against bosses. Oli gets a magical ball of light he can use to either hold to illuminate dark places or throw in third-person shooter style, but only really against the bosses, and those are more puzzle than Gears of War. The game takes you to a whole host of areas, from Gnome Forest to a butcher shop, a swamp full of dead souls, and a village ravaged by plague and witchcraft. Each zone is fairly short, just long enough not to wear out its welcome, and are visually distinct. And that's the gist of Bramble. It's a walking simulator with light platforming and combat with a heavy emphasis on atmosphere, mythology, and making you feel really uncomfortable. So what do I like about Bramble? Well, this is a gorgeous game, even if the player model's a little funny looking, with surreal environments and fantastic representations of Nordic mythological horrors around every turn. Additionally, the atmosphere is so thick you can taste it, and it's paired with some fantastic pacing. The game often switches between awful horror and whimsical, almost saccharine fantastical elements, and the juxtaposition of these two contrasting feelings really aids the unsettling tone. And speaking of unsettling, yeah, this game's really unsettling. I play a lot of horror, and I know I have a winner when I have a general icky uncomfortableness upon putting the game down. There's no jump scares, just an ambience of dread, and if a horror game makes me feel like crap, that means I like it. When it comes to the bad, the combat and platforming here are oddly floaty, making some segments that require precision, or either the game's 3 core boss fights, more frustrating than they should have been. Additionally, the gameplay here is 90% walking around or finding where to walk next, with some stealth hiding from big lights every now and then. While I personally like walking simulators, those wanting more gameplay in the game may be disappointed. And lastly, I don't think I've given a content warning since Alice Madness Returns, and the game has one, and yeah, you should take it seriously. This thing has stuff like infanticide, suicide, plenty of violence towards kids, just to name a little bit. I do think the game does make it fairly tasteful, but this absolutely isn't for the faint of heart, so if that stuff bothers you, maybe just avoid it. As you know, I rate games on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. And Bramble is a descent into Nordic mythological nightmare hell, and I was 100% on board for it. It's rich, uncomfortable atmospheres paired with gorgeously grotesque visuals and an engaging fable, all working together to make an unsettling yet hopeful experience. It's a game that is stuck in my mind days after finishing it, so if you have any affinity for mythology and horror, you should absolutely playing it, assuming you can handle its subject matter. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you played Bramble the Mountain King, thanks to Tim for the suggestion. Now I won't sleep for a week. Regardless, let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure you go out there and spook yourself with Bramble.